I'm really happy to be back with this new video. And currently on Earth, we are experiencing something very, very, very important, something very powerful. And we may be feeling it on a certain level, may it be intuition, certain memories coming up, certain feelings. And this thing that is happening, and I will be talking about this in this video, is also related to the figure of Mary Magdalene that is coming forward very, very strongly in this spring 2026, and I will tell you why and how. But there is this soft and yet powerful movement on Earth currently that is related to the awakening and the activation of the divine feminine. So, just to put a little bit of context in this, since the beginning of the year, I've been feeling intuitively that Mary Magdalene would be very important around Easter. I didn't know why. You know, it just came to my mind in the beginning of the year. And then I went through a series of synchronicities and events that gradually reconnected me to Mary Magdalene. So just for the record, it's been 12 years now that I live in a region which we call in France, it's the south of France, it's the Cathar region, which is pretty famous with Rennes le Chateau, and you have all this story of the Da Vinci Code actually is coming from this story from Rennes le Chateau. And what happened to me in the beginning, in these past weeks, then I will tell you about what happened 12 years ago, but is that I reconnected back to the divine and sacred medicine of the white rose, which helped me to heal some wounds and helped me to make peace with certain aspects as well. And this reconnected me to the anointing oils that Mary Magdalene actually carried with her to the West with the Holy Family to France. And that's basically about plants and alchemy and, you know, how plants can really help us to heal in a sacred way. And following that, I was then reconnected back to the lineage of the rose, which is the lineage of Mary Magdalene. It is the lineage of Mother Mary, and of course, it also comes from the lineage of Isis, which is the lineage of the priestesses of Isis. And this is something that I connected back in like 12 years ago when I was guided to actually come to this region to live. I didn't know anything about the Cathars. I didn't know anything about Mary Magdalene at the time, you know, just the basic stuff. But I felt connected to her so strongly when I arrived here, and she guided me step by step. And I have to say that thanks to her, thanks to this region, the energy that is here, very strong and vibrant energy, I actually became who I am today. She actually helped me to reconnect to who I truly was inside and, you know, reveal the best out of me in a way. So I'm really full of gratitude for Mary Magdalene. Following that, a couple of weeks back, I was also guided to read the Gnostic texts and specifically the Nag Hammadi text. So to be completely honest, when you read those texts, you really need some time and some space because it's very profound, and I haven't had the time yet, so I'm not going to talk about specifically what is inside the texts. That's for later. But I know that these texts were hidden for a very, very long time by the church, by secret societies, by the power that be, because, and also, you know, excluded from the Bible, because in those texts there were also teachings from Jesus, from Yeshua, because they simply didn't want us to know the secret knowledge that is inside those texts. And also there is this whole aspect of the feminine that was hidden, suppressed, and I would say, they kind of tried to erase it from the story entirely. If you're familiar with the Da Vinci Code, first of all, it's really like, it's a fiction, it's based on a true story, but it's completely modified, so I wouldn't recommend to actually dive into the Da Vinci Code, but actually dive into the true story of Rennes-le-Château, Mary Magdalene. Because what does it tell us? It tells us about lineage, it tells us about a bloodline. And what is revealed is that actually Jesus, Yeshua, was married to Mary Magdalene, and Mary Magdalene actually carried her children. So there is this bloodline that spread across Europe that is of Jesus and Mary Magdalene's descent. And through this bloodline, there are really these divine codes of the Christos-Sophia that is really encoded inside the DNA. And as I said, it spread all across Europe. So many people carry that information today. After the crucifixion, Mary Magdalene and the Holy Family actually came to France through Sainte-Marie de la Mer and then Narbonne, and then they descended towards what we call the valley of Bucharest and Rennes-le-Château, and they settled there for a couple of years. And that's where she is said to have given birth to one of Christ's child. In the Gnostic text, there is a divine archetype that is called Sophia. Sophia is an aspect of, we would say, the Divine Mother. And Sophia is the counterpart of the masculine Christos. So Christos represents the awakened consciousness. It is the light, it is the truth. It is, of course, incarnated as Jesus, but it is a state of being in the end. And Sophia represents wisdom. That's what it means, actually. Sophia is wisdom. It's the divine principle and the living cosmic intelligence. So it's linked to the soul, it's linked to sensitivity, to intuition. So we could say that Christos is the intelligence, the masculine aspect, and Sophia is the wisdom, the feminine aspect. And so what the Gnostic texts tell us is that the path is actually the union of both Christos and Sophia to become whole again, to become unified again. And that's actually the path that is offered to us, to unify those two aspects within us and to reveal that divine union of Christos and Sophia within us. And what actually Gnosticism tells us is that Sophia is the soul incarnated that actually finds her Christos, the awakened consciousness. And Jesus, Yeshua, and Mary Magdalene really represented this in incarnation, completely embodied on this earth, these two divine principles that find each other and in union create this complete awakened being. There are many avatars of Sophia. So Sophia is an aspect of the Divine Mother, and it really leads back to, of course, Isis, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene. What is really important to notice is that Jesus, Yeshua, wouldn't have become Christ without Mary Magdalene, without his divine counterpart, feminine counterpart. Because, as I just said, it is really a story of balancing out the masculine and the feminine, the Christos masculine principle with the Sophia feminine principle. And this is what has been suppressed for so long, for millennia now. It's really this divine aspect of the feminine and its importance as really the bearer of knowledge and wisdom also in this world. In the Gnostic text, we also learn about the Demiurge. So what or who is the Demiurge? It is the false god. It is the fallen one. It is the one that thinks he is the ultimate creator, the creator of matter, and therefore really wants to dominate and reign over matter. And it is, of course, related to what we could call Satan, or even maybe Lucifer, even though Satan and Lucifer are two different aspects, not exactly the same thing. And this Demiurge actually created this, what we call the artificial matrix that we live in, so the illusion. And it is through the illusion of separation that Demiurge actually rules this world of matter, or tries to rule it. And of course, when we think about it, So yeah, it's the principle of trapping human souls into this matrix. So trapping consciousness, but it is not possible to actually trap consciousness in the same way that if we want to trap air, it's not possible. Consciousness is not something that you can trap, so it's only the illusion of entrapment. Now, next to the Demiurge, we have the Archons. Who are they? They are these, I see them as actually jailers, you know, so they are keeping the jail, they are keeping this illusion of separation, and they are feeding off negative emotions and negative energy from human beings. So we would call them also maybe demons, or like demons are also kind of thought forms that are connected to certain egregores. So they are really maintaining, let's say, the matrix that it is, the artificial matrix, and the illusion that it has on the human soul. And what is really interesting to know is that the origin of the word matrix is actually the womb. It's actually the cosmic womb, the origin of, you know, the world. Maybe you know that famous painting, and that represents really the divine creator, which is God, goddess, creating from this cosmic divine womb. And therefore, coming back to Mary Magdalene, she was really considered as the real grail, the sacred, the holy grail, because she was the womb that carried the bloodline of Christ to the world. And Mary Magdalene is very trendy right now. We hear a lot about Mary Magdalene, a lot of people talk about her, and there is a reason for that actually, because she represents this aspect of the feminine that was suppressed for so long. She represents that feminine which was dragged in the mud, insulted, treated as a prostitute, as being sinful. And of course she wasn't all of that. She was very much a teacher herself, actually, in the same way that Yeshua had his disciples. She also had her Magdalenes, the famous lineage of the rose that I was talking about, and she was also initiating other women. So she was also, of course, Jesus's wife, and as I said, Jesus could not have ascended in the way and resurrected and become really Christ without his divine feminine counterpart. And this aspect was completely suppressed from the story, from the Bible, from the Roman Catholic Church, of course, and only the Cathars, that I was mentioning also in the beginning of this video, recognized Mary Magdalene. So the Cathars lived in the Middle Ages in the south of France, in Occitania, and they really recognized in her the bearer of the divine knowledge and wisdom. And they really recognized fully her as the incarnated Sophia. And they knew that this feminine aspect was also very important for the spiritual ascension and to become whole. And of course, the Cathars were persecuted and eliminated by the church, unfortunately. And what is interesting to know is that in the Cathar society, women were as important as men. They were really equivalent to men. They could teach, they could have positions of leadership. And again, we are in the Middle Ages, so that was pretty rare at the time. What we are experiencing now for the last couple of weeks is the reactivation of the divine consciousness of the feminine through the archetype of Sophia. So it's as if Sophia is finally awakening again. And the image I'm having is really the one of a queen that, rises up again. And I see her with her immense coat or a robe, really encompassing all the planets. And I really feel an energy of warmth, of love, of softness. And yeah, it's really, I can really feel the love that is surrounding this planet through this activation. And this activation is really happening within us too. That is why maybe you've been feeling certain things recently, have certain intuitions, or maybe you've also had some synchronicities as I've had and I mentioned in the beginning of the video. And if you have, don't hesitate really to comment, because I'd be really glad to read what you're experiencing. And this reactivation is really through our bodies. It is through our DNA, because this information is actually dormant in our DNA. This Christos-Sophia information that was spread through the lineage of the Christ and Mary Magdalene 2000 years ago is now being reactivated, and there's really this re-emergence of that energy. And through that, we are going to experience a liberation from the illusion. It is as if this artificial matrix, this patriarchy, is really crumbling completely now. We are awakening fully to that, and we are awakening also through our bodies. Maybe we have some physical symptoms right now. Physical bodies, as I said in my forecast for 2026. Watch out. More importantly, we are experiencing really this opening of the heart center, the heart space, through unconditional love, through also what will lead us to a form of acceptance, fully accepting, fully encompassing, and this also leads to forgiveness. So this is really the divine Christ feminine aspect that we are talking about here. And what Mary Magdalene actually shared is that what is really important to notice right now is not thinking, okay, the divine feminine is awakening again, so we are going to go into a matriarchy, or there's going to be a dominance of the feminine over the masculine. What we are really witnessing right now is, because there is this activation, reawakening of the divine feminine, there is a harmonization happening between the feminine and the masculine. And this harmony between the masculine and the feminine, this union that is happening, is what makes us complete. It's what makes us whole again. And we cannot ascend spiritually if we do not recognize these two aspects fully, whether we are man or woman, because of course men have a feminine aspect and it is very important for them to awaken it as well. And we're coming into balance between these two polarities. Sophia is really related to the soul that comes to incarnate on earth. And so she represents really this human soul that has forgotten, but that still carries this divine spark within her. And when she meets her Christos, the awakened consciousness, then she remembers her divine origin and she remembers her true divine nature. Because the most important thing to realize, it's not what religion has tried to tell us, believe or not believe, sin or not sin. It is what is the true problem that we have on this planet. The true key of understanding is ignorance. It is through ignorance that the powers that be, the matrix, holds this grip on human souls, and it is through the recognition of our true divine nature and liberation from that ignorance that leads us to the ultimate truth of who we are. And that's really the energy that is happening on planet Earth right now. So I hope that all of this resonated, that it was useful for you, that you felt the energy that was transmitted as well, because I've been experiencing a lot of very high energies, notably through a meditation I did a couple of days ago, which was very intense with Mary Magdalene. And it is really all about also the union between the spirit and the body, the spirit and the heart, the spirit and the soul. And so we see that we are complete. Sat Nam. See you soon.